Hello, welcome to Context. I'm Dilek Tuna. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at the Economic Cooperation Organization, often cited as one of the world's major regional economic groups, and we'll ask, has it fallen short of its full potential? The Economic Cooperation Organization, or ECO, is a regional bloc that stretches from Turkey to Central Asia and down to Pakistan and Iran, encompassing over 460 million people and vast energy corridors, trade routes and cultural intersections. Founded in 1985 and expanded in the 1990s, the ECO was envisioned as a platform for shared growth, greater regional integration and economic sovereignty in a rapidly globalizing world. On paper, it's one of the largest regional organizations after the EU and ASEAN, but unlike those blocs, the ECO has struggled to gain real traction. Trade among its member states remains low, infrastructure is patchy, and political coordination is often fragmented. Still, the strategic location of this region, sitting at the crossroads of East and West, North and South, gives the ECO enormous unrealized potential. So today we ask, can this bloc finally connect its scattered pieces? Are infrastructure corridors enough, or is a stronger political and economic glue required to bind this mega region together? So joining me to discuss are Dr. Melih Demirtas, researcher at Cappadocia University from Cappadocia, Turkey; Kaiser Nawab, he's the chairman of the Belt and Road Initiative for Sustainable Development from Islamabad; and our AnewZ correspondent and political analyst in Tehran, Turaj Shiraliliu. So welcome to you all, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Now I'll start with Dr. Demirtas. Let's start with the basics. Why has the ECO not yet lived up to its potential despite its size and resources?
Thank you, Ms. Tuna. Yes, this organization is actually founded and established in the last maybe years of the Cold War. Please remember the times, everything is a bit complicated at those times, starting from Iran-Iraq war. Also after the coup d'etat years of Turkey, we have a new liberalization program with maybe a liberal leader, economically liberal leader, Turgut Özal. And Pakistan wants to develop itself, of course, in its own region. So these three actors came together, I think, bravely also. Think about this Soviet Union and United States, harsh competitions also continued at those times. But suddenly, of course, in the beginnings of 1990s, we have this new, of course, spirit of this new lands from Central Asia and also Afghanistan. But that doesn't mean that all these regions that solved all the problems politically, economically or sociologically, because everything maybe came in a very maybe complicated manner to those countries. Both internally and externally, we had some very changing and rapidly changing environment inside our regions. Think about Turkey, of course, Iran situation, also Pakistan, but this new spirit, of course, with these new lands in Central Asia, and hopefully, of course, in Afghanistan, we can say that these lands want still some reforms inside themselves. First of all, starting from economy and cultural and sociological development, they hope that maybe this can maybe stimulate this political balances inside the regions. But of course, maybe outside or real, starting from maybe this Middle Eastern, of course, Iraq, of course, Syria, Palestine, of course, Ukraine, and the Caucasian and Central Asian own maybe atmosphere, this political turmoil, which is continuing maybe from the end of the Cold War, cannot give a new stimulus, cannot give a real sense, maybe to talk about this organization in a very politically maybe important sense. But that doesn't mean that in economic or cultural sense, this organization is not a very unfruitful organization. No, in an economic and cultural sense, we can find important summits and can find important meetings between the members. But still, we hope that the new organizations, maybe this Turkey Council, this Organization of Turkish States, also maybe this Belt and Road Initiative needs to spread, which gives a new idea to all these countries inside the bigger Eurasia. Maybe this can be combined with this old cooperation understanding of ECO.
Okay. All right. My second question I'll pose to Mr. Nawab. Proponents often cite connectivity, rail, road and energy as the missing link, but is infrastructure the core issue, or is the real barrier political coordination?
Thank you very much, and I agree to our colleague as well. I mean, there is, of course, the missing part is the connectivity. It's not only the infrastructure connectivity, but it's, of course, the political connectivity itself as well. What I noticed while very closely working with the Economic Cooperation Organization, and I see that there is also several other missing part of that as well, which is most likely to the youth connectivity as well. And we see that part is missing at that Economic Cooperation Organization. And that's one of the reasons as well, because this greater part is a huge population of the young people. And young people are today's very much involved in all decision making processes. And we see this previously, the example of the non-aligned movement as well, under the chairmanship of His Excellency Mr. Ilham Aliyev. And I think we see that how the young people was involved into that processes as well. And I think the Belt and Road Initiative itself, which is mostly like an infrastructure, but it's not only now an infrastructure cooperation projects, but there are some others initiatives like Global Civilization Initiative and Global Development Initiative, which are connecting the civilization as well, which is also a part of the parallel part of the Belt and Road Initiative. And I think Economic Cooperation Organization itself, which constitutes a very important position, and when we see the geostrategic location of all these countries, and also we see the economic situation as well, and also the potential of having huge resources in the country and their location itself. It's indeed a heartbeat of the world as well, and I think this organization can be transformed much better.
Okay, Antaraj, some argue the east-west and north-south corridors could unify the region. In your opinion, is that realistic given current geopolitical tensions among the member states?
It is realistic as long as we consider the geographical vastness and connectivity of ECO countries from West Asia to North and South Asia, and working as a connectivity or as a crossroads of where the east-west and the north-south corridors can meet. But these are as long as prospects are on paper. And where prospects are on paper, they seem promising. I call this apple pies in the sky and facts on the ground. So facts on the ground dictate us a different reality. I would like to add, before answering these questions, a couple of points to what the previous guests told us.
Please.
I totally agree with them. But the point is, in fact, ECO is a core entity or a early post-Cold War entity. It started with RCD, then developed to CENTO, and later on formed in 1980s in the form of ECO. UK was a member of CENTO, and during the 70s, United States was a supporter of CD. But at this time around, it seems that there is a lack of a locomotive, I should say, an economic locomotive missing in this part of the world. And ECO did not redefine and reassess its situation following in the post-Cold War area. The same problem existed with NAM, Non-Aligned Movement, and NATO. NAM could not redefine its mission. NAM could not start a structural reform. And I think the same applies to ECO. ECO needs to reassess and redefine its mission, and the whole its mission, its vision in the broader sense, and then start a structural reform in order to be able to keep pace with the real development of today's world. So to say that we have something like 500 million population, or saying that, I should say 500 million population, some 8 million square kilometers, it's a fact, but not the fact. There are other facts involved, and in this sense, I should say, there is a problem. The problem is that ECO needs finance, investment, and what is lacking here is an ECO joint investment fund in order to support implementation of the projects. What we agree, what we pass as resolutions, when we come into action, we see that there is no force, no financial force to support these decisions, these resolutions. And this is, I think, can more or less contribute to the development and also to the reform in the ECO and its future.
Okay. Now, Dr. Demirtas, how much of the ECO's underperformance is due to competition or overlap with other blocs like the CSO, CIS, or even China's Belt and Road Initiative?
Yes, thank you. This is also another maybe a side of the medallion when we think about ECO's perspectives, because there are many organizations inside this Eurasian real. If you can think, as you said, that maybe this Russian-led or Chinese-led maybe organizations, also this organization of Islamic State, also even the AID and Gulf Cooperation Council, and everything, maybe every organization has some intersection points in this realm, in this bigger maybe Eurasian area, which is maybe having some economic advantages, having some economic maybe new potentiality inside their own, of course, political agenda. But Economic Cooperation Council has some advantages, of course, as I said, in the last years, in the last maybe periods, which has made it so difficult for all the blocs, I mean, for Soviet Union. Think about that, maybe after 1 year of the foundation of ACO, we see, for example, this important catastrophe in Chernobyl. We see important maybe upheavals even in Azerbaijan, in Central Asian states. In many countries, we had also some important turmoils. And that give maybe stimulus to incorporate all these lands, all these new maybe members after this end of the Soviet Union to the Council. But now maybe the Russia and Chinese blocs, I mean, as you said, that maybe these Belt and Road initiatives, and even these Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, this can have some links with this new understanding of ECO. I can maybe start to discuss this issue from the cultural point of view. As in the last months, in the last weeks, we have made, for example, a meeting in Erzurum, in one of the important eastern city of Turkey, with a new understanding maybe of cultural city, with a new understanding of economic maybe meetings between the important tradesmen and the commercial personalities from these member countries. But if we can start maybe to combine all these representatives from these different organizations, even, of course, from China, from Russia, we can some observer, of course, people can be invited to this cooperation council. But also, we must first of all think that, as the other guest, the legal guest said, that what can be done about this political atmosphere, because the political atmosphere is still so tense. And thanks to Azerbaijan, maybe you can also have some new, maybe a diplomatic atmosphere in Caucasus, in Caucasia, and now such a stable atmosphere maybe you can find in the other regions, first of all in the Middle East, also in Afghanistan, in the line of this Pakistan-Afghanistan line. Unfortunately, we have a new and fresh conflict between Pakistan and India. Hopefully, it will not continue with harsh military, of course, solutions, but still, all these political turmoils had still some effects on this common spirit.
Okay. Now, Mr. Nawab, does the absence of a dominant economic anchor, such as Germany in the EU or the US in NAFTA, limit the ECO's cohesion and direction?
I think now these major actors are much distributed to some other part of the world as well. As we mentioned few times about the Belt and Road Initiative, I think China is very much one of the potential partner who can cover this gap very easily. And China's philosophy is much aligned to the multilateral platforms and multilateral way of cooperation. And I think the countries in these ECO blocks, they are much more, you can say, comfortable with the Chinese way of working and philosophy. And that's the reason the Belt and Road Initiative is growing, and particularly started with the flagship projects from Pakistan and that part of the ECO's region as well. Mm-hmm. And recently we see the the visits of the president of Azerbaijan to China. We have seen that how much these regions are closing to each other, and this Zangezur corridors and other corridors playing their important role in the Belt and Road initiative or the Silk Road as well. So I think today's politics is more around the economic values and the economic opportunities, and I think these opportunities are more available near just in the shoulders, or you can say just nearby the ECO countries, which is China. So rather than to go to Germany, while just recently we saw that the German chancellor in his first speech mentioned about more closeness towards China. And I think these bigger countries, and we see that the United States tariff war as well. Just last week, they withdraw their tariff positions at the United States in Geneva, and they are much now on a talkative points with China. So I think we have a better option, China, rather than to go to the West, which has always been politically utilized. The smaller countries are the global South, and they have never been so much committed to their own commitments, for example, this Paris Agreement and other agreements. So I think the Chinese option is much better than, and it's more valuable than the rest of the options you mentioned.
Okay. Turaj, how significant is Iran's or Turkey's role within the ECO? Are they natural leaders, or do rivalries get in the way of deeper integration?
Well, in one instance, they are founding members of ECO, and as founding members, Iran, Turkey, and Pakistan have a joint mission and a joint objective to move forward this organization. So in that sense, they have this common cause for establishment of ECO, which was later developed and became larger with new memberships from former Soviet Union republics, mostly from Central Asia. So that's for one, indicating that Iran, Turkey have the same mission for the success of this entity. But it's very natural that not only Iran and Turkey as neighboring countries, which are member states of the ECO, but any other ECO member state can have their own competition in their economies, and they can also have complementary in their economy. For example, I should say that Turkey is an energy-hungry country and Iran is an energy-rich country, so they can complement each other. And it's natural that they can have rivalry in a number of areas, not only in economy, but in terms of security matters, in terms of I should say cultural matters, and this can apply to any other member within the ECO, any other member states within the ECO or outside the ECO. So I don't see any, I should say, exception with regard to the situation of Iran and Turkey. So I should say that as the founding member states, they already have this leading role of, or perhaps bringing more ideas or having more support to the projects within accepted and ratified within the ECO, and naturally enough, they can have complementary and competition in terms of a number of other matters which you already mentioned. They can have their political interests, with differing interests, and it is natural, I should say, as a rule of thumb, that different countries, when are working together, they are not functioning as concentric circles. They can be heterogeneous circles with some coverage or with some sharing of areas of interest. But I don't think that this differences between Iran and Turkey can function as a hindering factor or as an inhibitor to put forward ECO's cause. And they are in one way or another moving together. ECO Secretariat is in Tehran, ECO Cultural Institute is in Tehran, based in Tehran, and these countries, especially Iran, Pakistan, and Turkey, share the burden to some extent, as founding members, share the burden of leading the countries of member states of the ECO. So to answer your question shortly, I think they are already cooperating together. But the problem with ECO is not the rivalry between Iran and Turkey. And as I said, these are infrastructural problems, infrastructure deficiencies within ECO. And just to answer part of your previous question, whether it is a rivalry with Shanghai Security Organization or Belt and Road Initiative, I can't reject it, but I see the basic problem is internal, inherent in ECO, which should start structural reform and build new vision, new objectives based on the new realities and emerging realities of the new world.
Okay, Touraj, thank you so much. Now, we're running a little bit short of time, but I'd like to ask one last question to Dr. Demirtas. Finally, what's the glue that could make this bloc stick? Is it trade, energy, security, or something else entirely?
All of them, but also if something else can be spelled in one word, it could be maybe a new spirit. This spirit, first of all, must have a sui generis, maybe ideal also, because all the Western maybe dominated realm had affected us all of these countries in ECO realm, as Mr. Touraj and also other valuable experts, I mean, in Islamabad, they said that this may be a non-Western spirit, which is also some historical, also some culture glues inside ourselves. Maybe it can give also a new communitarian ideal to organizations like ECO. I mean, we must think about like the Zengezur Corridors project, that how we can benefit all from such a project. I mean, we all know that Iran can have some hesitation, of course, Turkey, Azerbaijan, even Armenia. All these actors, I mean, has some, of course, positive important, maybe commercial advantages through such projects. And from the external actors, maybe positive roles, I mean, starting from China and Russia, we can have also some positive maybe contributions from these actors, and ECO can really have maybe an old spirit, but a new spirit to this regional cooperation aspect.
Okay, Dr. Demirtas, thank you so much. And thank you very much, Touraj, for joining us. And Mr. Nawab, your contribution is most appreciated.
Thank you.
Now, the ECO occupies a region rich in history, energy and ambition, but realising that potential requires more than meetings and maps. Whether through trade routes, shared infrastructure or political will, the challenge now is transforming geography into genuine cooperation. For context, I'm Dilek Tuna. Thanks for watching.